At the beginning of the year, I did a video called Timeline of Russian Interference in the United Kingdom, and we talked about what Vladimir Putin had been orchestrating in the UK, which included assassinations, money laundering, political corruption, and false campaigning. Since then, more evidence has come to light. I have even had the privilege of speaking to an ex-MI6 agent. So for this new timeline, I've decided to talk about Vladimir Putin and sort of background history of him. Ex-KGB agent, and in 1991 he decides that enough is enough. He's going to leave the KGB and he's going to go into the world of politics, quickly becoming deputy mayor of St. Petersburg. During his time as mayor, he learned a lot of basics on how to attain power, and he maintains it through use of the mafia to create monopolies, mafia to regulate gambling, money laundering, assigning contracts and licenses through city loans to friends, as well as unauthorized use of cities' funds to help and maintain his position of power. It's important to take note of how he maintains his power because we're going to see this replicated later on. Having learned what he did from being the deputy mayor of St. Petersburg, as well as having connections with key Russian oligarchs, Putin eventually becomes Prime Minister of Russia. And with the removal or resignation, depending on who you look at, of Boris Yeltsin by 2001, Vladimir Putin is sworn in as President of Russia. He also makes it very clear to the other oligarchs what will happen to them if they go against him.
Well, once Russia's richest man, imprisoned Kremlin critic and former oil magnate Mikhail Khodorkovsky was sentenced to 14 years in jail, this on a new conviction of embezzling oil.
This is effectively a vendetta from Vladimir Putin for Khodorkovsky getting involved in opposition politics.
What came down though? What came down? We crashed. The other trade center's down. It's down. It's down.
However, on September the 11th, 2001, a major event, 9/11, would take place, which would cause security forces to take their eye off the ball from Russia and refocus on the Middle East. In fact, things were so good with Putin that George Bush allowed him to vacation with him in 2001. So let's step away from Putin and now focus our attention on the UK. How were they responding to this? And what was Putin doing inside the United Kingdom? According to the Intelligence and Security Committee of Parliament report into Russia, MI5 devoted around 20% of its effort to hostile state activity, which includes Russian activity alongside with hostile activity of other states such as China and Iran. In the 2001-2002 committee report, they raised concerns over reductions in finance and focus on Russia. These reductions are causing intelligence gaps to develop, which may mean that over time unacceptable risks will arise in terms of safeguarding national security and in the prevention and detection of serious organised crime. The agencies must be given sufficient resources to enable them not only to fill the staff vacancies that are being created, but also to expand sufficiently to ensure that they can meet the new demands now being placed on them. The government didn't heed these warnings, and the following year MI5 now devoted around 16% of its effort to hostile state activity, including Russia. In 2005, Russian television, also known as RT, is established. 2006, 23rd November, Alexander Litvinenko is killed using radioactive material which is dumped across the whole of London. No terrorist organisation has achieved this before, or as of 2021. Due to constitutional limitations, Putin has to stop being president. Medvedev becomes president of Russia, and President Putin becomes Prime Minister Putin. Russia also invades Georgia during this period. Despite this show of aggression and the assassination, MI5 now only devoted around 3% of its effort to hostile state activity, including Russia. By 2010, MI5 are now increasing their attention towards Russian activity to 10.7%. However, something interesting came up as a result of the Russia report. The committee claims that it was asked to redact, that means remove, any mention of Russia as a perpetrator of cyber attacks for diplomatic reasons. In 2010, we had the strange death of Gareth Williams, found naked inside a padlocked North Face holdall, a bag, in the bath of his London flat, and it now remains an unsolved mystery. The key was found on the inside of the bag with Gareth, but the bag itself was padlocked from the outside. Rumours spread that he'd been killed by shadowy Russian forces because of his work as an intelligence agent for MI6. It wasn't until 2015 when a former KGB agent, Boris Berezovsky, claimed that the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, known as the SVR, had murdered him to prevent him unveiling a spy inside GCHQ. And there were certainly strange clues. For example, there were no fingerprints, footprints, or traces of his DNA on the rim of the bath, the zip bag, the bad padlock, suggesting someone had cleaned up the scene. There were also strange payments put into his bank account of £2,000. 2011, October. It has taken 5 years for Marina Litvinenko to win the right for an inquest into her husband's death. Vladimir Putin becomes president of Russia once again, and he goes on what can only be described as a revenge killing spree. Starting off in March 2012, exiled Russian banker German Gorbachev survived an assassination attempt as he stepped out of a taxi in East London. No one was ever caught. However, later that year, another death would take place in the UK. Alexander, and apologies for the pronunciation, Perplenetsky, who was helping Swiss prosecutors uncover a multi-million-pound money laundering scheme used by corrupt Russian officials, died in mysterious circumstances outside his home in Weybridge, Surrey. The businessman collapsed whilst out running, and it was initially believed he'd suffered from a heart attack. However, traces of a poison that could be found in the Psyllium plant were later found in his stomach. Boris Berezovsky was found hanged in his own apartment by apparent suicide in March 2013. In 2012, the former Kremlin insider lost a $3 billion damages claim against Chelsea FC owner Roman Abramovich. It's difficult to say what happened to Boris. Both the Home Office pathologist Dr. Simon Poole, who carried out the post-mortem examination, said there was nothing to indicate any other people were involved. However, Professor Bernard Brinkman, who deals with hanging and asphyxiation cases, said the marks on the body and the neck could not have come from a hanging. Professor Brinkman stated they were far away from the typical inverse V shape usually seen, whilst the congestion on its face also not consistent with a hanging. He said he believed the businessman was strangled by someone else and then hanged from the shower rail in the bathroom. By now, MI5 have devoted 14.5% of its effort to hostile state activity, including Russia. In 2014, GCHQ stated Russia has carried out malicious cyber activity in order to assert itself aggressively in a number of spheres, including attempting to influence democratic elections of other countries. 20th of February to the 26th of March, Putin invades the Crimea. 18th of September, it's the Scottish independence referendum. We are to later find out that that referendum has been interfered with by Russia. On December 14th, one of Boris Berezovsky's associates, Scott Young, an Englishman, was found impaled on railings in Marylebone after allegedly falling from his flat. Scott Young laundered money for the Russian mafia, and interestingly, before his death, it was claimed that he had a fortune of roughly 380 million, which since has been proved to be correct. However, no one can find any trace of that 380 million. As recently as 2019, his daughter came forward and claimed that it was a Russian assassination. 2015, January 27th, a public inquiry begins into Litvinenko's murder. UK Metropolitan Police investigate £180 million worth of UK properties. It is thought that they were purchased with corrupt proceeds by secretive offshore companies, in arrangements akin to putting money in a Swiss bank. Deutsche Bank also claim a considerable chunk of the UK's $133 billion of hidden capital inflows is related to Russian capital. Transparency International, the global coalition against corruption, stated billions of pounds of corruptly gained money has been laundered by criminals and foreign officials buying upmarket London properties through anonymous offshore front companies, making the city, London, arguably the world capital of money laundering. James Lang LaSalle, a real estate agency that bases itself in London, estimated that Russian property buyers had spent some $560 million As you're starting to tell, London is awash with laundered money, which is important if you're wanting to hide illicit funds. January 2016, public inquiry into Litvinenko's murder finishes. It concludes that this was an FSB operation, that's a secret service run by Putin, and that the operation was probably personally condoned by Vladimir Putin. Also in January, the Conservatives received $100,000 from Global Functional Drinks Limited, a UK subsidiary of the Swiss firm Global Functional Drinks AG, which is in turn controlled by Oleg Smirnov's SNS Group, one of the leading Russian tobacco firms. In 2016, the Atlantic Council published the Kremlin's Trojan Horses. The Atlantic Council are an international group with the idea of trying to shape policy and politics through education. The report goes on to state that there are a small number of Conservative MPs who are ardently pro-Russian, including the MP for Shrewsbury, Daniel Kwasinski. It also labels John Whittingdale, the former Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. Also has long-standing links to a questionable figure from the former Soviet Union, Dmitry Firtash. The document also makes reference to Nigel Farage, stating before the referendum campaign the UK Independence Party avoided directly inflammatory rhetoric about immigration. During the campaign of 2016, UKIP's line on immigration became markedly more aggressive, bringing the party closer to radicals like the French National Front and the German AfD. The leader of UKIP, Nigel Farage, has also moved the party's foreign policy closer to Russia, criticising the EU sanctions regime and publicly expressing admiration for the Russian president. On the 21st of June, something very strange happened. An advert turned up on the Metro newspaper, seen by thousands of commuters in London and across the UK, but not in Northern Ireland. Here is what Mervyn Story had to say of it. He's a member of the DUP.
We're a national party. We're the fourth largest party in the House of Commons, and clearly this is a national campaign. Northern Ireland hasn't been the periphery of this campaign. We've been, in many respects, as far as the DUP has been concerned, we have been a central player in the Leave campaign, and therefore it's as conceivable to take that advert in that particular publication as it is to take it in the ones that we have done here in Northern Ireland.
So some of the facts around this include: this is the biggest donation that the DUP have ever received and have ever given towards another campaign. The origins of the donation and the donor do not have to be declared due to exemption laws inside Northern Ireland. 23rd of June, Brexit referendum. 23rd of June, another strange incident takes place. Nigel Farage says it looks like Remain will edge it as polls close. August 2016, a Labour MP wrote to the Prime Minister, Theresa May, to question the provenance of a £400,000 party donation made by Gerard Lopez of Rise Capital, a fund that specialises in public and private partnership infrastructure deals in Russia. 2017 February, head of the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, Clarence Martin, asserted that Russian government has stepped up its online aggression against Western countries. He cited 188 major cyber attacks over a 3-month period against the UK government, most of which were reportedly connected to Russia and China. The National Cybersecurity Centre reportedly blocked 34,450 attacks over a 6-month period against the UK, although not all of these attacks are necessarily the Russian government. The newspaper Novoya Gazeta details a global laundromat scheme involving an estimated 500 Russian oligarchs, bankers or individuals with connections to the FSB, who moved at least 20 billion in stolen and illicit money out of Russia from 2010 to 2014. It showed British banks possessed nearly 740 million, creating questions about the lack of scrutiny applied to suspicious money transfers, and the anonymity afforded under UK law to the beneficial owners of British registered companies. 15th of June, Heidi Blake from BuzzFeed released the book From Russia with Blood. BuzzFeed investigated a spate of murders that had taken place across the UK and linked them to Putin. UK authorities had failed to respond firmly when people in Britain started dying on a regular basis due to Russian assassinations. MI6 officials claimed, "We know the Russians have an active program of killing people in the UK that they don't like. but had blamed the failure to prevent the killings on Scotland Yard. Russian agents were able to conduct these operations in the UK with relative ease, basically get to the UK and kill. November, CNN alleged Russian-based troll farm internet research agency had used Twitter accounts to generate pro-Brexit messages before the UK referendum. November, Prime Minister May in an address told the Kremlin, "We know what you're doing, and you will not succeed." 2018, 10th of January, Putin's asymmetric assault on democracy in Russia and Europe, implications for national security, led by the United States Senate. An interesting document with quite a few references to Russia and the UK. The Russian government has sought to influence democracy in the United Kingdom through disinformation, cyber hacking, and corruption. UK campaign finance laws do not require disclosure of political donations if they're from the beneficial owners of a non-British company that are incorporated in the EU and carry out business in the UK. The report suggests may have enabled Russian-related money to be directed with less insufficient scrutiny to various UK political actors. Senators pointed out that UKIP and its then leader Nigel Farage did not just fan anti-EU sentiment, but it also criticised European sanctions on Russia and provided flattering assessment of the Russian President Putin. The popular belief that Russian money has flooded into the UK in recent years, particularly into real estate market, and that considerable chunk of unrecorded inflows into the country are a result of Russian capital. The University of Edinburgh ultimately asserted that more than 400 Internet Research Agency Twitter accounts that had been active in the US election had also been actively posting about Brexit. CNN alleged the numerous accounts had also blasted out pro-Brexit messages before the UK referendum. The University of California, Berkeley and Swansea University in Wales reportedly identified 150,000 Twitter accounts with various Russian ties that were disseminating messages about Brexit before the referendum. 10th of January, officially the Russian government asserted its neutrality on the question of Brexit referendum, but its English language media outlets, RT and Sputnik, covered the referendum campaign extensively and offered systematically one-sided coverage, supporting a British departure from the European Union, and frequently broadcasted statements from UKIP head Nigel Farage. 4th of March, Putin sends another hit squad to Britain, this time to attempt to kill a former Russian military intelligence officer, Sergei Skripal. This time Putin uses a nerve agent. 2 UK police officers suffered minor injuries and 1 detective was hospitalised. March 2018, Ian Hislop makes interesting allegations about Jacob Rees-Mogg and Rex Tillerson.
To say he runs a hedge fund which has made a huge amount of money out of Russia and perhaps he could give some of it back, I don't think he'll find that very funny in the coming weeks. And he's not so ancient, he doesn't know how to manipulate the current markets.
June 2018, the New York Times makes allegations that Russians offered business deals to Brexit's biggest backer, Aaron Banks. From the 9th of June, the New York Times goes on to say there were multiple meetings between the leaders of Leave EU and high-ranking Russian officials from November 2015 to 2017. 2 meetings in the week, Leave EU launched its official campaign, an introduction to a Russian businessman by the Russian ambassador. The day after Leave EU launched its campaign, who reportedly offered banks a multi-billion-dollar opportunity to buy Russian gold mines. A trip to Moscow in February 2016 to meet key partners and financiers behind a gold project, including a Russian bank. Continued extensive contact in the run-up to the US election when Banks, his business partner and Leave EU spokesman Andy Wigmore and Nigel Farage campaigned in the US to support Donald Trump's candidacy. On the 30th of June, Dawn Sturgis and Charlie Rowley find a bottle of perfume 7 miles north of Salisbury. Dawn sprayed the bottle onto her wrists and fell ill within 15 minutes and died on the 8th of July. Charlie survived. Reports are coming out from newspapers in the UK that Robert Mueller, the FBI director who is leading an investigation into Trump, known as the Mueller Report or the Report on Investigation into Russian Interference in the 2016 presidential election, it is reported that he is seeking more details on Nigel Farage. 14th of November, the London School of Economics, the LSE, writes a report stating the extent of Russian-backed fraud means the referendum is invalid. It claims 4 reports from the US and UK on the Brexit poll have damaged the legitimacy of the vote. They documented the Kremlin-backed cyber war the harvesting of UK voters' personal data, criminal overspending, and how the biggest donation to Brexit, 8.4 million by Arron Banks, may not have come from the UK. Banks denies his money came from the Russian gold mine, but failed to sue those who said he colluded with Russians to deliver Brexit, and Banks' lawyers dropped him. Now a legal case is listed for 7th of December to declare Brexit void, and nullify notification of Article 50 is being led by 2 QCs against the Prime Minister. The campaign for a people's vote on an actual deal, not a mystery Brexit price, is also gathering strength. So after 4 reports, is a funeral for Brexit coming soon? November 16th, a curious incident takes place at a Belgravia restaurant. Boris Johnson was photographed with Nigel Farage and didn't look particularly happy about it. He was also photographed with his father. December. Reuters announces that the EU plan to combat fake news to deal with election fraud. The money is to be spent to counter fake news on the internet, establishing an early warning system to alert governments and pushing tech companies to do more to stop disinformation before next year's EU elections. The European Commission's plan, which must be agreed by EU leaders as part of an attempt to stop what the United States, NATO and the EU say are Russian attempts to undermine Western democracies with disinformation campaigns that sour divisions. Russia has repeatedly denied any such actions. The article also has a quote from Vice President Andrus Ansip. There is strong evidence pointing to Russia as a primary source of disinformation in Europe. Disinformation is part of Russia's military doctrine and part of the strategy to divide the West. December 31st. Select Committee of Intelligence United States Senate on Russian active measures campaigns and interference in the 2016 US election. According to reports prepared for officials in the United Kingdom, roughly 2,800 accounts linked to Russian posted content on the 2018 poison attack on Sergei Skripal and his daughter in Salisbury, England, in an effort to provoke uncertainty over culpability for the attack. 24th of September 2019, the criminal probe is dropped against Leave EU's Arron Banks over the Brexit campaign. However, the Electoral Commission comes out with a statement saying, "We are concerned about the apparent weakness in the law, highlighted by this investigation outcome, which allows overseas funds into UK politics." 2019 October, a new general election campaign begins. October 17th, Boris Johnson, Prime Minister, is given a copy of the Russia Report. On the 11th of November, CNN have investigated the Russia Report. They had interviewed people who had met with the security panel, as well as also getting a hold of the leaked report.
Sources are telling CNN the Cross-Party Intelligence and Security Committee heard from multiple witnesses, and they all allege Russia has built a network of friendly British diplomats, lawyers, parliamentarians and other influencers across the political spectrum.
They say that successive governments have turned a blind eye to Moscow's targeting of political parties and research roles inside the House of Commons. And they claim that well-connected lobbyists, lawyers and lawmakers have worked to help Russia infiltrate the British establishment.
The people who we've seen working to further Russian interests in the UK are some of the people at the highest level of the establishment.
Another source accused authorities of putting political considerations ahead of national security, and Russia is potentially the most significant threat to the UK's institutions and its way of life. On the 12th of November, Hillary Clinton stated this on the BBC.
"I'm dumbfounded that this government won't release the report about Russian influence, because every person who votes in this country deserves to see that report before your election happens."
Why do you think they're not releasing it?
I don't know the answer to that. I would think a reporter like you and others should be absolutely relentless in trying to get to the bottom of it. Because, look, we know from even this current Trump administration's intelligence officials that the Russians are still in our electoral system. There's no doubt of the role that Russia played in our 2016 election and is continuing to play. There's a lot of evidence that Russia played in the Brexit election. Now, I'm not, in your country. I don't have a say about any of that. But the fact that the current government won't release this report by your own government should raise some questions.
20th of November, Boris denies there's any Russian interference.
Absolutely no evidence that I've ever seen of any Russian interference in UK democratic processes. And as
22nd of November, Boris denies there's any Russian interference, comparing it to that of the Bermuda Triangle.
Whether or not there was Russian interference or any kind of influence.
There is absolutely no evidence that I know of. If that's
the case, then why not release it?
To show any interference in any British electoral event. And
However, on the 22nd of November, there's a very interesting interview with DW News and Lebedev, one of the Russian oligarchs that was mentioned earlier, who now runs two British newspapers, the Evening Standard and the Independent.
Are you friends with Boris Johnson?
I'm not friends with him, but I know him. Maybe Zhenya is friends with him.
Zhenya is Lebedev's son Evgeny. He played host to British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, then the Foreign Minister, at his villa in Italy. When was the last time you met Boris Johnson?
2 or 3 years ago, but I think in total I've met him more than 10 times.
We want to know more about a party at your Italian villa.
It was Evgeny's birthday, but I myself didn't see Johnson there. He was tired and just relaxing. What do you want me to say, that I saw him or not? Either way, I did not talk to him.
And your son, when was the last time he saw Johnson?
I don't know, ask him yourself. They've been friends for years.
Did your son contribute money to the Conservatives?
I don't know anything about that. He owns newspapers that could theoretically influence people, but I doubt he's done that. British journalists are hard to influence. I'm sure my son didn't donate money to the Conservative or Labour Party, or anyone else for that matter.
What about you?
Are you kidding? I can't afford to do that.
So where are these suspicions coming from?
This is fake news written by The Guardian. They want to compromise Boris so that Corbyn can become the next Prime Minister, of course with a little help from the KGB.
20th of July, the Conservatives have won the general election. Johnson rejects a call for a crackdown on London being a laundromat for Russian cash and states that London has some of the strongest controls in the world. July 21st, the UK Russia report is finally released. Interestingly, in the full report, it does make reference to the BuzzFeed book From Russia with Blood.
The various statements have been made, not by Prime Minister, but by Number 10, which were categorically not true. And, they are facts. And it's, I know there's a new thing that if Number 10 says something, it's got to be true. Unfortunately, on this occasion, it clearly wasn't. I think I listed at least 4 occasions. There's clear evidence, not only just from the Scottish referendum, but also the Democratic leak in the United States. And so serious questions need to be asked why ministers didn't then see that they should at least look at the level of Russian interference in those elections. It's remarkable to me that suddenly last Thursday we had a statement saying or claiming that Russia had interfered in the 2019 general election, but complete silence on what went on before. The outrage isn't that there was interference. The outrage is that no one has wanted to know if there was interference. Successive governments have welcomed Russian oligarchs and their money with open arms. And there is a lot of Russians with very close links to Putin who are now very well integrated into both UK business, political and social scene, in what has been referred to as Londongrad. Yet few, if any, questions have been asked regarding the provenance of considerable wealth. This open door approach has provided an ideal mechanism by which illicit finance could be recycled through the London laundromat. And it is not just the oligarchs either. The arrival of Russian money has resulted in a growth industry of enablers, lawyers accountants, estate agents have all played a role, wittingly or unwittingly, and formed a buffer of Westerners who are de facto agents of the Russian state.
That a number of members of the House of Lords have business interests linked to Russia or work directly for major Russian companies linked to the Russian state. These relationships should be carefully scrutinized, given the potential for the Russian state to exploit them. There must be complete transparency about any links with Russian businesses at every level of politics. And we do not have that in respect of the House of Lords at present.
The report also stated that money was also invested in extending patronage and building influence across a widespread sphere of British establishment. PR firms, charities, political interests, academia and cultural institutions were all willing beneficiaries of Russian money, contributing to a reputation laundering process. In brief, Russian influence in the UK is the new normal, and there are lots of Russians with very close links to Putin who are very well integrated into the UK business and social scene and accepted because of their wealth. This level of integration, in Londongrad in particular, means that any measures now being taken by the government are not preventative, but rather constitute damage limitation. 22nd of July, Boris Johnson claims the government is doing more than any other Western country.
There's no country in the Western world that is more vigilant in protecting the interests of this country or the international community from Russian interference.
23rd of July, The Times. The Conservative Party's finances came under renewed scrutiny last night as it emerged that 2 of its MPs on the Intelligence Watchdog Committee and 14 ministers had accepted donations linked to Russia. The Times stated that Mr. Ivan Lewis, International Development Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan, Justice Secretary Robert Buckland, Chancellor Rishi Sunak and Business Secretary Alok Sharma have all been handed between $5,000 and $58,000 personally or via their constituency parties in the past 6 years, according to figures obtained by The Times. 23rd of July, news site Talbot claims that Lyubov Chernakhin is the biggest female donor in the history of the Conservative Party and her husband is a former Putin ally. Chernakhin's total donations to the Conservative Party have reached 1.7 million since she began giving money in 2012. According to the Scottish news site The Ferret, Alexander Temenenko is another prominent Russian donor in Tory circles who has given money in the past year. Temenenko, who has spoken warmly about his friend Boris Johnson, has gifted over 1.2 million to the Conservative Party over the past 7 years. On the 25th of July, the Guardian newspaper posted an article called Moscow on Thames, where they cite donations being given to the Tory party, totaling in somewhere in the region since 2012 of 3 million. As stated earlier and seen in an earlier clip, Lebedev denies all support for Russia, even citing that his companies have been attacked cyberly by Russia. However, interestingly, Lebedev supported Russia's takeover of the Crimea and held a conference there in 2017 to counter what he said was a Western media bias. In 2021, Temenenko comes up again through the company Aquin Limited, which has been broadcast through a video created by a group called Led by Donkeys, who specialise in protest videos and billboards. In the video they show about a company called Aquin Limited who are trying to put a data cable through the city of Portsmouth to France. A number of MPs have protested, including former defence secretaries to this, suggesting that there could be a data breach as a result of this cable. And the local MPs and populace have been protesting regularly.
Meet Alexander Temenenko, the former chief of a Russian arms company and now director of Aquin. He considers himself a good friend and sometime drinking partner of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Temenenko, now a British citizen, is a member of the so-called Leaders Group, an association of the Conservative Party's biggest donors who, according to the BBC, are invited to regular meetings with senior ministers. Temenenko and his businesses have donated to almost 1 in every 10 Conservative MPs. Nigel Adams, Karen Bradley, Robert Buckland, Conor Burns, Alan Cairns, Simon Clarke, James Davies, Michael Ellis, Liam Fox, Mark Garnier, Robert Halfon, Simon Hart, Chris Heaton-Harris, Jeremy Hunt, Brandon Lewis, Jason McCartney, David Morris, Joy Morrissey, Cheryl Murray, Andrew Percy, Mark Pritchard, Tom Pursglove, Will Quince, Mary Robinson, Alok Sharma, Chris Skidmore, Ian Stewart, Rishi Sunak, Justin Tomlinson, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, Martin Vickers, Robin Walker, Craig Whittaker, and John Whittingdale.
What I find particularly interesting is John Whittingdale's reference in another document from 2016, the Kremlin's Trojan Horses. What we're starting to see is connections, direct connections with Putin and other members, as well as other groups outside of the UK referencing our MPs for taking money from Russians.
In total, Temerko and his businesses have donated 150 times to the Conservative Party, giving £1.5 million. So who does Boris Johnson and his government really work for? Wealthy donors who buy access to the very top of the Conservative Party?
What is particularly disturbing is what would happen if Temerko decided that he wanted to remove that money from the Conservative Party unless he got his way on a particular issue. It would be severely damaging to lose that amount of funding overnight. I want to say a big thank you to all my patrons who help make this channel and sustain it. As you can see, I've gone into extensive amount of detail and research in order to come up with these conclusions for this video. If you'd like to support me, it'd be really appreciated. You can do that through Patreon, and you can do it for as little as a coffee a month. From all of this, we are left with some very intriguing mysteries, and we are definitely left with a bitter taste in our mouth. If you're British, you feel you've been taken over by Putin. We have assassinations that should be on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. We have assassinations that are clearly linked to Putin, who is the only person who could have got a hold of that radioactive material and released it to agents. And we have up to 14 assassinations that frankly need further looking into, and for some reason have not been looked into further detail by the Metropolitan Police. We have clear and extensive money laundering taking place in the United Kingdom, and our Prime Minister is refusing to investigate.
There's no country in the Western world that is more vigilant in protecting the interests of this country or the international community from Russian interference.
In fact, he's saying that there is no money laundering problem despite all evidence. We have extensive political corruption to the point where, rumour has it, not even our secret services trust our Prime Minister. Nonetheless, the political corruption taking place in the extensive amounts of money that has clearly been put over into the Conservative Party, as well as other parties within the United Kingdom. Frankly, it's gotten to the point of complete and utter disconcertion, especially as the government appeared to be getting rid of a number of civil liberties and reducing democracy in the United Kingdom. We no longer have a formal constitution. We do not have a Supreme Court equal to that of Parliament. And as for the House of Lords, it has much teeth in it as Grandpa Simpson. What that leaves with us is the false campaigning, which has clearly been prolific all the way through. We have the mystery of the DUP money, which is extensive and was targeted in London, which has never happened before. We were expecting another report to be started and completed probably by now into further Russian interference, which was requested in the UK Russia report. That has gone silent. We have no idea of what's happening with that. And we have members of our own secret service with a deep concern as to what is taking place within our political system, with Putin sending assets in that are now difficult to remove from the UK system. But don't fear, there is always hope. There's the old adage, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. And yet there are more and more channels coming to the forefront, not just mine, speaking out against what they see as heavy levels of corruption. And this and other projects are growing because people and the national mood are changing. They're fed up with tycoons buying access to the heart of government. Write to your MPs, write to their parties, avoid companies that you don't think are ethically right for this country, and ask your MPs where their donors are coming from. I hope you enjoyed my political observations this week. If you'd like to support me, please share the video with others and post about it on social media. If you're keen for more, subscribe, comment, like, and hit that notification button. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Political X.